Welcome back to Faith Walk with Debbie. January 25th, 2020, I went for my very first of 30 radiation treatments. I was extremely apprehensive. I was given this specific card to swipe across a machine at the radiation check-in desk. The lady at the desk then would put a hospital band on my wrist. Side note, I'm not sure why, but I felt I needed to keep every single radiation band. Don't know why, but I don't know, maybe it just made me feel like an accomplishment. So here's a picture of every single radiation band that was put on me. You know, as I had started through this whole process, I had kind of wished I would have kept every single hospital band that I've worn through all this, but I never did. I've kept some of them, but this is every single one that I had during the radiation process. After they put the band on, I went to a specific woman's area where there were 2 dressing rooms with a locker and key. I undressed from the waist up, put on a hospital gown. After leaving my clothes and belongings in the locker, I sat in the waiting room for the women. As the weeks progressed, I got acquainted with 2 other women that was receiving radiation. And it really helped me to talk to them about their situation. Neither had been through all that I had because they didn't have to have chemo. But it just really helped to talk to them. The radiation therapist then came to get me from the waiting room. The therapist always asked my date of birth. The therapist also looked at the band on my wrist, while another therapist verified the information in the computer. So they made sure that they had the right person with what the treatment was. Often they asked if I wanted a warm blanket. Most of the time I didn't, but there was a couple cold days that I agreed to, and it really felt nice and warm to snuggle with the blanket. We all then went into a radiation entrance room, and then we would turn left down this hallway that then took me into the big room, which is where the radiation was done. I could tell for safety that the room where I had the radiation was done was quite a bit of distance from where the other people were. I'd lay my glasses, mask, and locker key on the seat of a chair, and I was very grateful that I did not have to wear a mask through the procedure. And I want to explain what the machine looked like. At the top are 2 posts that are raised, which is where I would hold my hands to. There's a headrest that my head would lay in. And then there's also a curved part for where they would place my hips. And they made it comfortable specifically for me because I had some back issues and neck issues. So each time they wound up putting 2 pillows under my knees, and there was a layer of foam under my back. My head could not look straight ahead because the radiation was on this side, so I always had to turn my head to the left. And it was hard for me to hold my head still. So after about the first week or 2, I realized if they rolled like 2 small hand towels, and I put one underneath my chin to prop it up, and then another one to prop that towel, then I felt like my head was more secure and looking off to the side, and that really helped. So then it was hard to be comfortable exactly, especially in the beginning. And this muscle or that muscle would revolt, is what I would say. And then when you've got to lay completely still, and this muscle doesn't feel good, oh my gosh, it is so hard to continue to lay still during it. But I eventually accomplished it. And then they also would take a rubber band around my shoes. I learned not to have my feet flat on the table. I did that one time, and oh, it was so uncomfortable. So I always had to have my heels on the table with my feet pointing up, and that ended up being a lot more comfortable. Because the machine passed overhead a few inches from my face, and I was afraid it would make me feel claustrophobic, I asked for a washcloth to be positioned over my eyes, and it really did help. Once I was placed, the therapist used those green laser lights that came from each side to line up with the tattoos that was on my body. Now, I was laying on top of a sheet, and if I wasn't aligned properly, usually there's a therapist on each side of me, and one of them would pull it this away, the sheet this away or that away, in order to move my body into exact position. One time out of all 30, I laid down in 100% exact position and didn't have to move. Now, the radiation process, once they got me positioned, the therapist left the room, and I had to lay completely still, could not move at all. The bed moves in and up towards the machine, and I could hear it making noise as it would move over me. And I prayed during that time to make it go faster. Somebody who had already been through radiation told me that she prayed during radiation, and I thought that was a really good idea. And so that would be my prayer time, and it really did help make it go faster. Now, the first 23 radiations, I laid completely still for about 8 to 10 minutes. The therapists were outside the room, and they changed the machine position several times during the procedure. But the radiation itself is only about 1 minute in each area. So like they would position it so it would be a particular area, and then they would position the machine so another particular area. And each time they got it positioned, the radiation was only about 1 minute in each place. The total of it took about 15 minutes from the time of going in until I came out. But laying still was maybe plus or minus 10 minutes, something like that. When the radiation treatments towards the end became more localized, actually the total treatment time really became a lot less. The last week they concentrated only on the original cancer area, and then they added this, I'll call it contraption, to the machine. This black square looking part. The first time they used it, they took specific measurements from my lumpectomy incision in order to know exactly where to position it. They drew on my breast with marker to be exactly sure where they needed to position that contraption. They had the radiologist verify their calculation that first time. And then the black portion actually came within an inch or so of my body when it was in position. Once they got it in position, they went out of the room again, and the actual radiation treatment really did not take very long then. When I was done, the therapist would walk in the room and let me know they were done. Excuse me. They then would remove the rubber band, the pillows that help me sit up, and ask if I wanted them to tie my gown. Typically, I had the radiation done during my lunch hour at work, and usually I made it back in less than an hour. So that was very doable. It just got very tiring going every single weekday for 30 treatments. Every Wednesday, though, I would see the nurse who looks to see how my skin reacts, and she would look, wanting to know how red it was or whatever. And then I would talk to the actual radiologist. Very few times did the radiologist actually look at how my skin was doing. When I was done, I would go back towards the dressing room. And here's something that's very special. The nurses at the nurses' station always said hi. And having the therapist be so pleasant around me, and the nurses as I would walk out, really helped. To acknowledge that I was there really meant a lot. And I told them how important that it was. So then I would change my clothes and I leave. But because the radiation caused lots of skin irritation, I was required to use a specific lotion 3 times a day to help soothe the skin. And I was told not to wear a bra as much as possible. And I found a lot of times the strap of my bra, I would push off off my shoulder because it really irritated it here. But I ended up wearing a lot of extra large men's dress shirts around the house because they was so big, a lot of air could get up and the material didn't irritate. And I was encouraged to stretch my arm up against the wall because radiation can make the tissue tight. And the deep tissue massage in that area really helped ease the tightness. The main side effect that I had was skin irritation, redness and itching. And the worst place was right here on my collarbone. It got severely red, burned, and itched. And it hurt to have anything lay over it. The radiation on the top back right side of my back also got red some. I was sore under the breast for a couple weeks where it felt like my skin was ripping whenever I would move. And towards the end, the middle part of my chest area got really irritated. And actually, it even got worse after the radiation stopped because the radiation continues to work after the treatment. But the collarbone redness went away within a couple weeks, and it actually went away a lot quicker than I thought it would. About the middle of the last week of radiation, I started to experience what I'm calling radiation fatigue. I was so tired. Continued off and on for a couple weeks after radiation stopped. It really concerned me, like, am I ever going to get my energy back? And I was very grateful when the energy finally did come back. A month after the radiation ended, I had to return for a monthly checkup. The nurse was very pleased with how well the skin healed. And basically by that time, I didn't have any skin irritation left at all. And I was told wherever I had the radiation, in the future, I had to wear sunscreen because I would be a lot more sensitive to burn in those areas. Overall, the radiation experience was tougher than I expected, but it was doable. The schedule was tough, having to go every weekday for 30 days. The skin irritation added to the stress, and then the fatigue came. It was a harder process than I had expected, which ended up being very emotional for me. I had to constantly remind myself of Philippians 4:13, and in the New Living Translation it says, "For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." I knew I could get through it, all that radiation, because Christ was helping me to go through it. And remember how I've learned, I may not like what I'm going through, but I know He is allowing it for His purpose. And if He is allowing it, then I can have the confidence that He's going to help me go through it. Therefore, I can do it. I can do it because Christ lives in me. So the next time I want to share about an unexpected roller coaster ride that I experienced.